Alright, so your check engine light popped on and your scanner is showing a P0340 code. What does this mean? Well, P0340 is a generic OBD2 trouble code. It specifically points to an issue within the camshaft position sensor circuit, usually for bank 1. This sensor is a really crucial part of your engine's management system. It has the important job of telling your car's computer, the engine control module or ECM, the exact position of the camshaft. This information is vital for timing things like fuel injection and the spark from your spark plugs. So when you see P0340, it means there's a problem with the signal from this sensor. Now what does this P0340 code actually mean for your car's performance and health? When this particular code appears, it's a clear signal that your car's brain, the ECM, is confused. It's not receiving a clear, reliable signal from the camshaft position sensor, or the signal it's getting doesn't make sense. This confusion can seriously mess up how your engine runs. You might notice a significant drop in engine performance. Your fuel economy could also take a hit, meaning more trips to the gas station. In some more severe instances, your engine might crank but refuse to start, or it might stall unexpectedly while you're driving. It's your car telling you it needs some attention, so don't ignore this warning. So, how do you know if a faulty camshaft sensor is the troublemaker, even before you plug in a scanner? There are several common symptoms you might experience. The most obvious one is that pesky check engine light illuminating your dashboard. You might also find that your engine cranks for a much longer time than usual before it finally sputters to life. In some cases, it might not start at all, leaving you stranded. If the engine does run, you could experience a noticeably rough idle, or it might stall unexpectedly, especially at low speeds. Acceleration could feel sluggish and weak, and you might even hear or feel engine misfires. Your car just won't feel like its usual self. Ignoring a P0340 code is generally not a good strategy and can lead to bigger problems. If you continue driving with this issue, it can potentially cause more serious engine damage down the line. For example, incorrect timing could lead to unburnt fuel entering the exhaust system, which can overheat and damage your expensive catalytic converter. Persistent poor engine performance also puts extra stress on other components, leading to premature wear. Plus, you'll almost certainly fail an emissions test if your state requires one. Taking the time to diagnose and fix this code promptly can save you a lot of money and a lot of headaches in the long run. The first step in tackling a P0340 code is to get your hands dirty with some basic diagnosis, starting with inspecting the camshaft position sensor itself. First, you'll need to locate the sensor. Its position can vary quite a bit depending on your car's make, model, and engine type. So it's a good idea to consult your vehicle's service manual. Once you've found it, take a good look. Check for any obvious physical damage to the sensor body or its connector. Is it cracked, loose, or covered in a thick layer of oil and grime? Sometimes simply cleaning the sensor and its surroundings can make a difference, but this visual inspection is just the beginning of our detective work to find the root cause. Next up, let's focus on the wiring harness and the electrical connections for the camshaft position sensor. Very often, the problem isn't the sensor itself but the pathway that carries its signal to the ECM. Carefully examine all the wires leading to and from the sensor. You're looking for any signs of damage like breaks, chafing, burnt spots, or melted insulation. Also, pay close attention to the electrical connector. Check for any corrosion on the pins, both on the sensor side and the harness side. Make sure the connector is plugged in securely and that it clicks into place. A loose or dirty connection is a very common culprit for triggering this type of fault code. If your visual inspections of the sensor and wiring don't reveal any obvious problems, it's time to break out your trusty digital multimeter to test the sensor's electrical function. Before you start poking around, refer to your car's repair manual. This is super important because it will tell you the specific type of camshaft sensor your car uses, the correct pins to test, and the expected voltage or resistance readings. Depending on the test procedure, you might need to set your multimeter to DC volts, AC volts, or ohms. Always make sure your multimeter is set correctly to avoid damaging the sensor or the ECM. With your multimeter ready and your repair manual in hand, you can proceed with testing the sensor. The manual will specify whether to test with the sensor connected or disconnected, and if the ignition should be on, the engine cranking, or off. For example, you might check for a reference voltage from the ECM, a ground connection, and the signal wire. Carefully probe the specified terminals on the connector with your multimeter leads. Compare the readings you get to the values listed in the service manual. If your readings are significantly out of the specified range, it's a strong indication that the camshaft position sensor itself has failed and needs to be replaced. This test helps pinpoint the problem accurately. One of the most frequent reasons you'll see a P0340 code is, quite simply, a faulty camshaft position sensor. These sensors are electronic components, and like any electronic part, they have a limited lifespan. Over many miles and years of operation, they can wear out internally. The delicate electronics inside can become sensitive to the high temperatures found in the engine bay. Sometimes they just fail without much warning. If your diagnostic tests, especially the multimeter tests we talked about, point directly to the sensor not producing the correct signal or having incorrect resistance, then replacing the sensor is usually the most straightforward solution to get your engine timing right again. Another very common culprit behind the P0340 code is damaged wiring or faulty connectors associated with the camshaft position sensor circuit. As we discussed during diagnosis, the wires that carry the signal from the sensor to the engine control module are vulnerable. Engine vibrations, excessive heat, or rubbing against other components can cause wires to chafe, break, or develop shorts. Sometimes pesky rodents find engine wiring to be an appealing snack. The electrical connectors themselves can also be a source of trouble. Pins can become corroded, bent, or push out of the connector body, leading to a poor or intermittent connection. This effectively breaks the communication line. While it's less common than a bad sensor or wiring issues, a malfunctioning engine control module, ECM, can also be the source of a P0340 code. The ECM is the central computer that manages your engine's operation. If the ECM itself has an internal fault, it might not be able to correctly process the signal it receives from the camshaft position sensor. In some cases, a faulty ECM might even generate a P0340 code erroneously, when the sensor and wiring are perfectly fine. Diagnosing an ECM problem is typically more complex and often requires specialized diagnostic equipment and expertise. It's usually considered a potential cause after all other possibilities have been thoroughly investigated and ruled out. Beyond the sensor, wiring, and ECM, there are a few other potential problems that can trigger a P0340. Issues with the engine's mechanical timing components, such as the timing belt or timing chain, can sometimes be the underlying cause. If the timing belt has slipped a tooth, or if the timing chain is stretched or its tensioner has failed, the camshaft's actual position will be out of sync with the crankshaft. This discrepancy can confuse the ECM and lead to a P0340 code. Additionally, problems with the reluctor wheel or tone ring on the camshaft, which the sensor reads to determine position, can also be a factor. If this wheel is damaged, excessively dirty, or has come loose, the sensor will receive inaccurate data. Once you've performed a repair, such as cleaning a connection or replacing a component, the next step is to clear the P0340 code from your car's computer. The easiest way to do this is by using an OBD2 scanner. Most scanners have a function to erase trouble codes. Alternatively, you can perform an ECU reset by disconnecting the negative battery terminal for about 15 to 30 minutes. This will clear the codes and reset other learned values. After clearing the code, take your car for a drive cycle, which usually involves a mix of city and highway driving, to see if the check engine light stays off and the P0340 code does not return. Sometimes a temporary glitch might have caused the code, and a simple reset could be the fix. If your diagnostic efforts have definitively pointed to a faulty camshaft position sensor, then replacing it is usually the most effective solution. First, make absolutely sure you purchase the correct replacement sensor for your specific year, make, and model of vehicle. Using the wrong part can cause more problems. Before you start, it's a good practice to disconnect the negative battery terminal for safety. Then, locate the old sensor, carefully unplug its electrical connector, and remove the retaining bolt or clip that holds it in place. Gently pull out the old sensor. Installation is the reverse. Insert the new sensor, secure it, plug in the connector, and reconnect your battery. This is often a manageable DIY job. If your investigation revealed damaged wiring or a compromised connector as the root cause of the P0340, then that's where your repair efforts should be focused. For minor breaks or frays in a wire, you can often repair it by carefully soldering the broken ends together and then insulating the repair with heat shrink tubing. Ensure the connection is strong and well protected. If a connector is severely corroded or its pins are damaged beyond cleaning, you might need to replace the connector pigtail. This involves carefully cutting off the old connector and splicing in a new one, matching wire colors precisely. Always ensure all your electrical connections are secure, clean, and shielded from moisture and heat. Finally, let's talk about how to prevent that annoying P0340 code from making a return visit in the future. Regular vehicle maintenance is your best defense. Keep your engine bay relatively clean. This makes it easier to spot oil leaks or developing wiring issues early on. Periodically, take a few minutes to visually inspect wiring harnesses and connectors in the engine compartment for any signs of wear, chafing, or heat damage. When replacing parts, especially critical sensors like the camshaft position sensor, always opt for good quality components from reputable brands. Adhering to your vehicle manufacturer's recommended maintenance schedule, particularly for items like timing belt or chain inspections and replacements, is also crucial.